Okay, so here we go. You've got a 4B pencil and you are going to write your name at the top, your first and last name, and then whatever hour you're in. Along the side, you're going to label what it is that you're using. So if you're using a 4B pencil, and then you'll go over and you'll go down 2 and write charcoal, and these are the different charcoals that you'll be using. Willow charcoal, pencil charcoal, and then we'll go ahead and just get started here. So this is the darkest value side. Make sure you read. And I'm going in just using a basically a back and forth motion at an angle so that way I can blend in these lines very easily. Now I'm going back and I'm layering in the other direction. And then I use my finger and I blend it in. And then I'm going in another opposite direction to further blend those lines. I don't want it to look like scribbling. This is the most important thing. You want to avoid it looking like you are scribbling. We want it to be nice and smooth. So this is why we layer up our value, okay? And now I'm blending it into the next box. So I'm going back in, again, opposite direction. Blend. And then sometimes I take the residue from my finger and I start to fill in the lightest boxes. This just makes it so that it's like super smooth and light. Okay. So I like to start at the darker end, and then after I fill in about 3 of those, then I go to the lightest side, and then I kind of meet in the middle. That's the way that I choose to approach it. You can approach it in a different way if you'd like. That's fine. And then after you've gotten them all filled in, you can go back in and apply more pressure for the areas that are supposed to be darker and start to smooth out those lines and fill in any sort of white areas or gaps that you notice to really give that smooth, dark look. Now, for your pencil ones, it's not going to be black because it's pencil. It just can't be. So then I go in and I use an eraser and I just kind of clean up those lines that I've got on the outside. You don't have to do this. It's okay. It's going to get messy, but I like to just kind of clean it up a little bit. Now I'm going down to willow charcoal and I'm starting to fill in with my charcoal. Willow charcoal, or vine charcoal as it's also called, is just a different, it's a looser, lighter charcoal, and you'll notice the difference when you start to work with it. So this one requires you to kind of layer it up a little bit more. It's a lot like pastels in a way, and if you've worked with pastels in the past, you know that sometimes they can be extra chalky and light and easy to sort of dust off. So just kind of do your best with this one, and you're just trying to play around with understanding values. So now I've moved along to my pencil charcoal, and you'll notice the difference right away when you start working with the pencil charcoal. So again, I'm following these same sort of steps by going in using like an angular, not stroke, but motion, essentially trying to overlap. And then as you get lighter, you can sort of blend a little bit more. And when I'm filling in the lighter boxes, I am using less pressure, way less pressure, or I'm just not filling in as much of the box, and then I'm blending with my finger. So this comes back to problem solving. You're going to start to work with these materials, and this is why we do these sort of exercises, so that you can sort of test and experiment with how to work with these tools and how to learn to manipulate the materials. This is going to be super helpful when we do our gridded portrait drawings. So now I'm using pastel charcoal, and this is like, well, it's actually called compressed charcoal. It's a much thicker charcoal, and it's a lot darker. You'll notice the difference again when you start working with it. When you get into some of the boxes and you notice that maybe the lighter ones aren't as light as you want them to be, we'll talk about ways that you can lift those values. So I'm using an eraser here in the video, and that was simply because I just didn't have a paper towel nearby. But I would also use like a paper towel that helps to lift those values, or a piece of toilet paper, whatever you can get your hands on, basically, like tissues, paper towels. Usually people use like a blending stick. Okay, in these two boxes that we didn't label, I've now gone back and I'm using a pencil, and it's just labeled B, and then the other pencil that I'll be using is the 2H pencil, and this is basically just to get you to understand how pencils have different softnesses of the graphite. So you usually in your day-to-day will use a HB pencil, or I want to say a 2H sometimes in school, but this gives you more of a feel for how these different pencils blend or don't blend easily.